had used his own deductive skills and learning capabilities to learn the Wuyong language. He could decipher the meaning of the words, but because there wasn't anyone alive who could read those words aloud to him, he couldn't match the words with the sounds. Which meant he couldn't understand the chatter of those corpse-eating rats. But Tian, who had never visited Mount Tonglu before, understood. So what did this mean? With just a glance, He Cheng could guess what Tian was thinking. He immediately said, "Gege, don't panic just yet. I'll repeat those words again to you now. Give it a listen." "All right," Tian said. He Cheng's memory was exceptional, and once they left where the corpse-eating rats were gathering, he immediately repeated the words clearly. Tian stared at him nervously and heard a series of moderately paced and somewhat bizarre pronunciations. Those strange words had an ancient rhythm to them, and to have them enunciated steady and controlled through He Cheng's lips, the notes were deep and beautiful, pleasing to the ears. After concentrating on the words for a moment, Tian said, "I don't understand it." Now this was strange. He could understand the words those corpse-eating rats spewed, but now that He Cheng recited the same words, he couldn't understand. But it was impossible that what had happened was a delusion. He Cheng questioned, "Earlier, when you heard those voices, you understood them instantly and knew very naturally what they were saying, right?" Tian nodded. "Right. There was never a translation process in my brain." Which was why he didn't realize it was a different language. "I get it," He Cheng said. "What did you get?" Tian asked. "What you understood wasn't the Wuyong tongue, but the emotions of those who died." Tian understood, but at the same time, didn't. He Cheng explained further, which means a long time ago, someone heard the voices of the dead, understood them, and remembered them, then somehow transplanted this memory to you, infected you with those emotions. Because that person already knew the Wuyong tongue, you didn't need to know the language. Those voices had always been buried deep within your mind, and the moment you heard them, you were dragged directly into those emotions. "I see," Tian said, "but the problem is, who could pass those memories and emotions to me? And when did they do this?" After a pause, he murmured, "Guo." However, He Cheng said, "Can't be sure. Gege, you're already assuming your master is from Wuyong, but have you ever thought that if that's the case, then before, when we were in the stomach of the mountain spirit, shouldn't they have been communicating in the Wuyong tongue? Why weren't they?" This wasn't difficult to explain. Tian said, "Because the kingdom of Wuyong was destroyed 2,000 years ago, which means in the past 2,000 years, if they really did move about in this world, then they would more likely use the modern language. So when they communicate, they would very naturally use the language they're more fluent in." He Cheng gripped his shoulders, his tone growing harsher. "Gege, don't keep making yourself think in that direction." Tian finally turned back to face him. "Fine. Then San Lang, in order to transplant memories and emotions to another, what kind of requirements must there be, usually?" He Cheng answered, 2 requirements. First, you must trust this person absolutely, without any guard, and there should be a need, have a willingness to be led by this person. After a brief moment of contemplation, Tian had picked the candidates in his mind. He Cheng continued, "Second, you are powerless to retaliate against this person. They have the power to oppress you completely, and you hold deep fear toward them. Coco, think carefully. In these years, who matches these requirements? Shilin contemplated for a while, and after some hesitation, answered slowly. There are 3 in total. Very good. Which 3? He Chang asked. The first one is Guo, Shilin said. Although he loved his parents deeply and never guarded against them, deep in his heart, he knew that he and his father walked different paths. Thus, he couldn't say that he was willing to be led by his father. However, Guo, who took him in and taught him everything, matched the first requirement. This was expected. He Chang asked. Then the second one? Junwoo, Shilin answered. He admired and respected Junwoo immensely. No need to speak more on the subject. Thus he also fulfilled the first requirement. He Chang didn't look to be too impressed, but he didn't commit. And the last one? The third one, Shilin said, doesn't match the first requirement, but the second one. He Chang understood. He said darkly, white, no face. Shilin closed his eyes and nodded, a hand covering his front. I won't lie to you. Even though in front of everyone, I might not have revealed this, even to Feng Xin and Mu Qing back then, I had never said anything dispiriting, but I actually, deep in his heart, he deeply feared that creature. There was a period of time when even just hearing the name would make him tremble non-stop. However, Shilin had never dared to allow anyone to see, because he was the very hope in fighting white, no face. If even he was scared, then wouldn't everyone else fall into despair? If that should happen, then everything would collapse. Of course, everything was much better now. He Chang gripped his shoulders even harder. It's nothing shameful to be afraid of something, he said. Shilin gave a small, flickering smile. I'm just not brave enough, that's all. He Chang comforted. You don't need to be so hard on yourself. Without fear, there is no courage. Shilin was slightly taken aback. He Chang continued without pause. So is it only those 3? Shilin nodded, which meant someone among those 3 was the one who instilled the memories and emotions of the Wuyong people when the volcano erupted. He Chang mused, furrowing his brows. After a moment of silence, Shilin suddenly spoke up. That's not all of them. He Chang turned to look at him. What? Shilin sucked in a breath and said, I said, it's not only those 3. There's a 4th person. This person matches the first requirement, but he has nothing to do with those memories and emotions. He Chang had turned around completely. Oh, how so? Does your highness and this person also share many years of deep friendship? Not so many years, Shilin thought, but a deep friendship. He thought it counted, but he was too embarrassed to say it out loud. So he replied ambiguously. In any case, he might be the one I trust the most, even more so than my master and Junwoo. How does that count? He Chang said. Shilin cleared his throat lightly and said shyly, it's embarrassing to say, because if I were to commit a grave mistake or get into big trouble, the first one I think of is surely him. And this trust is not quite the same as what I have for my master and the emperor. Before he finished, he noticed He Chang's expression was off, and he trailed off. Sanlang. Only then did He Chang come to, and he raised his brows. Oh, it's nothing. I was thinking of something else. Your Highness really trusts this person so much? Although usually, when he raised his brows, he was at ease or teasing. This time, it didn't seem that natural. Shilian nodded. Is there a problem? Ho Chang bowed his head slightly, fixed the silver vambraces by his sleeves, and said, appearing nonchalant, nothing major, but a personal opinion. It's best if Gurga doesn't trust others so easily. Hearing him, Shilian couldn't be sure if Ho Chang figured out who he was talking about, and he didn't dare to reveal any more. So he only owed. After a pause, he still couldn't hold back and asked, Sun Lang isn't going to ask who this person is? Me? Ho Chang said. Since Gurga said you trust him and is determined that he has nothing to do with this affair, then there's no need to ask. Shilian rubbed his forehead, and soon after, Ho Chang said, But if Gurga wants to tell me, Sun Lang is happy to listen. Although his words sounded proper, if Shilian followed along and told him now, it'd be awkward, like he was begging people to ask who he trusted the most. Shilian couldn't tell whether it was just courtesy or Ho Chang really didn't care. Coincidentally, right then, the wraith butterflies that had been engaged in a bloody carnage with the corpse-eating rats had returned. After going through a strenuous battle, the silver butterflies were flying a little low, like they were dragging with fatigue. Shilian quickly went up to greet them, reaching out to catch a particularly tiny little silver butterfly. He said, Thanks for your hard work. Now he'd done it. The butterflies paused in the air, and the next second, it was like they smelled delicious pastry, and they all charged toward him like mad. Shilian still had the little silver butterfly cupped in his hand and was stunned. Ho Chang gave a calm cough, and the butterflies paused again. Then they flew toward him properly, landing on the silver vambraces on his arms, becoming one with the engraved butterfly pattern. The two continued to search for Yin Yu. After walking for a while, Ho Chang suddenly spoke up. It's not Feng Xin, is it? Shilian had already started thinking about something else, and when he heard him, he blinked. Huh? What? That person Gurga spoke of, Ho Chang said. Shilian instantly waved his hand. Of course not. Ho Chang's brows twitched. It's not Mu Ching either, is it? A drop of sweat rolled down Shilian's forehead. That's even more impossible. But why is Sun Lang suddenly asking about this again? Ho Chang smiled. I thought about it and suddenly felt that the fourth person is the most suspicious. So to prevent any surprises, will Gurga please tell me, who is this person you trust the most and have shared many years of deep friendship with? Shilian watched the smile on his face and had a gut feeling that the smile was very fake. Just as he inhaled deeply and was about to speak, the faint silver light from the scouting silver butterflies suddenly disappeared. Darkness fell from all around, and Ho Chang swiftly seized Shilian's hand and blitzed to the side of the street. Shilian could tell that something was wrong. He asked in a whisper, Sun Lang, something's coming, isn't it? Even though darkness had come so suddenly and nothing could be seen, he still followed Ho Chang's steps closely and flawlessly hopped into a house to hide. Ho Chang's voice rang next to his ear. It's here. Within the darkness, there was suddenly a very peculiar sound. Dong, dong, dong. Even though it was far away, each drag sounded exceedingly heavy. And with every sound, it did sound much closer than before. Its speed astounding. Shilian kept thinking that the sound was familiar and that he had definitely heard it before. When that sound was close, he looked outside. Sure enough, on the main streets of the underground city, a woman dressed in wedding robes appeared. While that woman had donned a wedding robe, the robe itself was ragged and shredded, chillingly gloomy. Although her face was handsomely beautiful, there was no sign of life. The glowing green ghost fire on top of her head also made her blanched face shine green. In her arms, she cradled a small child whose face was also pale, but who was much livelier than her. Obviously, a live human. Bumping into old friends again, Ho Chang said. It was the female ghost Xuanji.